A very good article by Kevin Rennie of The Current. Here is my response. You're listening to Mark Stewart Greenstein. It's the Daily Fire for Sunday, September 2nd. So Kevin has written astutely about a need to swing perceptions. Right? That's my take on it. But I want to have people realize that a candidacy like mine takes at most a 90-degree swing. It's not a 180. This isn't a pendulum that's going to go back and forth. We need to swing in the direction of liberty and less government. He writes, this Labor Day weekend, the candidates for governor should be working to tell us more about what they would do if elected. Well, Kevin, I am working this Labor Day weekend in this very classroom. I am either teaching or facilitating all 3 days. We have students who are prepping for the ACT and the SAT, so they're ambitious. I am equally ambitious on behalf of Connecticut people. I'll be working for 50 straight days once we're announced on the ballot. So I do want to tell your readers and all others who care what I am about. I am about a turn that does not take negotiating across a table like Ned wants. It takes educating now because we need to steamroll those who are recalcitrant. And those who are recalcitrant usually call themselves progressives. That's a nice name for statists. That's what they are. And they do intermingle, unfortunately, with leftists who are even worse. We need to call them out and realize that progressives, statists, leftists are not supporting American values. And even people in the Democrat Party should be very afraid of a blue wave. Kevin writes of Ned Lamont's desire to talk things out. He says, compulsion to mistake talk for action is part of the continuing crisis in Connecticut. He may be right, touche. The crisis of neither talk nor action is going on in our General Assembly now. Okay, 3 months ago, Dan Malloy called for a special session. Crickets. Why a special session? To do things that will help the state. Malloy has it right. Arasimowicz even agrees. But they can't get the General Assembly together. Where are they? Maybe they're at the beach with their free parking passes. Maybe they're campaigning. Maybe they're fundraising. They're not helping Connecticut raise money. No, MGM just opened in Springfield. They're helping Connecticut lose money in sports gaming and casino gaming. We could have both. It just takes a General Assembly to get stuff together. Well, what does Mark Stewart Greenstein do if come January there hasn't been a convening of the General Assembly? I will nicely ask once, would you like to try to work these things out? If they don't get that done within a month, okay, we're doing it anyway. My proposal is to let towns do what they want to do, okay? There doesn't need to be a state hammer on freedom. That's part of what I'm about as well. Municipalities can decide for themselves whether gaming is a good thing, whether sports wagering is a good thing, how they might want to regulate it, or how they just want the marketplace to regulate the good and the not so good. So rather than talk things out, as Ned Lamont would like, I would like to convince the statists that they're wrong. And to the extent that there are some pockets that won't be convinced, we steamroll their ideas. They don't deserve a place in continued Connecticut government. Maybe move to Maryland, which seems like an intractably socialist state. We're not, and we can show that here. Now, there's one issue that I have with Kevin, not a big one, but he seems to be demanding a lot of detail on the budget, mainly of Bob Stefanowski. I've given, I think, pretty good detail, department by department, but let me defend Bob if he doesn't want to give details. I'll make the argument that details on the budget are almost irrelevant if you have principle. Principle are the guidelines, the guardrails, so that if you get out of whack, this is what girds you. Now, department by department, I've listed where we can cut, where we should increase, and where I think we should leave it up to everybody else. That's part of the 3 principles that I have. So my principles here, number 1, that private welfare does a better job of funding than government welfare. Number 2, that the amount that people, hundreds of thousands of families, decide to fund different services becomes the best baseline budget. Number 3, it's really a corollary, that if a service wants to increase its funding, it needs to show people that it's worth it. And number 4, whatever we increase the taxpayers' load by, we pay for it immediately, okay? We don't run deficits for more than 11 months, okay? What you have voted for in the General Assembly, you have automatically taxed people for, okay? It's a one-to-one correspondence. If the GA in its wisdom says, we need $10 million for X, well, that means it's $7 per household going to X. That's what they just did when they approved it. They want to approve something for $20 million. That means your household is paying $14 year in, year out if it's one of those ongoing things. When you have that, you don't divorce payment from revenue, okay? You make them one and the same. California does this. They're not, by their constitution, allowed to run a deficit of more than 1 year. For all its financial woes, this is one thing that keeps California in place. Otherwise, they'd be really off the cliff. So I'm somewhat defending Bob here, that getting into the details may not matter. And I'm going to use a very good example. Kevin, I think you like him too. Ronald Reagan, who almost certainly did not know every detail in his proposed budgets. I think he was above that. And he became the most successful president of our lifetime, maybe because he was above that. By contrast, his predecessor, Jimmy Carter, was a wonk with details. But when things got out of whack, Carter didn't know how to handle it well. Well, I have very good guidelines that can handle the upside and the downside. I've planned really well. You can look at the level of detail that I have, but please remember, when you're asking for detail, it's bound to be wrong, okay? No budget gets it right. Our Connecticut budget was wrong like 5 weeks after we decided it this year. It was wrong by a lot, okay? No estimates come in, even within 1%. And that's many millions of dollars for some departments. So don't bother with the details. I'll provide them if you really think so, but you better make a really strong case. Principles. I hope you'll buy into my 4. More to come. I got to get back to my class. Afterwards, I have a very good proposal for many state services being funded better. Thanks for listening. Kevin, thanks for writing. See you on the trail.